I see we are live on Twitter.
Cool.
And we are live on YouTube.
All right. Cool. Hello, everyone.
Okay, hello everyone. Yeah, let's get started then.
Mhm.
Let me just bring up the slides as well. Okay, so thank you anyone who's watching for joining us today on this first FrodoBots RoboCall. So I will just kind of go straight into it because I guess if you are hearing about the project for the first time, you might not even know who we are. So this is us. I'm Niresh. I'm a member of the FrodoBots core team and the head of gaming. And more importantly, with me today is our co-founder and CEO, Michael Cho.
Hey,
Hello,
guys.
Michael.
Hello. Hey, guys. Thanks
Okay.
for dialing in. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe we could just sort of do like a quick overview on what FrodoBots is, if anyone is just like saw this passing somewhere and decided to pay attention.
Yeah. So, PhotoBots, we've been working on this for nearly 3 years now. Yeah, time flies. The North Star for this project is to advance embodied AI, or basically robotics AI. And um, yeah, we've been basically working on hardware, but also uh, kind of fusing robotics hardware with gaming. Um, and but really, the angle is still is to somehow either contribute data or any kind of resources that we think could really move the needle to advance robotics AI. Yeah, so I think that's what we do. We also have a very big crypto element to this whole project as well. Um, yeah, so I think that's the overview. I think more recently, maybe like some people started to find out about us actually the last couple of weeks because we we launched a meme coin called Sam,
Mhm.
and that got some mind share. So yeah, so I mean, I guess this call is really to talk through a lot of these what we've done in the last 2+ years, especially for those who are just finding out about us. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so I guess we can go into a little bit more detail on like the different things that FrodoBots does later on in the call. Um, so we also want to set the stage, I guess, a little bit that this will probably be a longer call than the ones we will do in the future, just because this is the first one, and I guess we'd want to give everyone a little bit of a bit more in depth look into everything we've been doing. But uh, I guess moving on with the agenda for today, why have we decided to start doing this robocall now? And why have we decided that we're going to try and do this at regular intervals going forward?
Uh, yeah. So like I said, especially the last 2 weeks, I think quite a lot of uh new folks that are just finding about like this project because of Sam. Um, and is also something that we've discussed before. Maybe we should do something more regular like this, where we kind of share with the community and also share with like just publicly what we've been working on. It's just that we just don't have that let's call it activation energy to get something going. But yeah, I mean, with this new group of people who are finding us about our project, I think it's really good opportunity to force ourselves to do this more regularly. So the idea is to do this, I would say, at least maybe once every 2 weeks, right?
Mhm.
Where we'll share some updates about what we're working on, and also I guess just to answer questions that are, that are coming in from the community, you know, from from our Discord and whatnot. Um, yeah, so and maybe after a while, I think it would be quite cool if we can invite some guests to join us and talk about, like, geek out about some robotic stuff. So I think that would be something we would love to do as well. But I imagine this call is going to be longer because this is the first one. So I think there's a lot of catching up to do. As you guys can see in the agenda, I think that there's a bunch that we want to share, so that everyone is kept catch up to date. What we've actually been working on the last 2+ years. Yeah. So, but this
Yeah.
should be a regular thing. This robocall. And also, I guess a shout out to the guys at Jupiter. We are big fans, especially with the planetary calls that they've been very diligent and doing it. Yeah, we really like the format, and it's just something that we want to emulate. So, uh, but yeah, so this is our attempt at doing that.
Awesome. Cool. So yeah, I guess let's get straight into it. So we'll talk a little bit more about FrodoBots and like the different things that FrodoBots does. I guess just like highlighting the agenda for people, and then we will talk a little bit about Sam. Sam is a relatively new thing that we've been working on, so we will get to that a bit later, and we'll also, I guess, tell you quite a bit more about like our plans for Sam. And then at the end, we'll engage with a few of the questions that we received from the community and possibly take a couple of questions. If you guys have any, you can send them in through Twitter, and someone from our team will try and forward it to us. And then we'll wrap up for this one after that. So I guess we've kind of done this. Maybe to elaborate on that a little bit, right? Like would what would people expect from these calls if we're going to have them every 2 weeks? Is it
Well,
going
I
to
mean, like, yeah,
be
like I said,
yeah,
mhm.
is it going to be primarily about Frodobots, or is it going to be specifically for Sam?
Well, I mean, anything that we do at FrodoBots and Sam is one of the project. Yeah, I mean, it will be a core project that we'll keep doing, Sam, but it will be more than just Sam.
Right.
Um, so yeah, but like I said, the what folks should expect is that this is a place where we discuss, things that we just shipped, in the last 2 weeks. And then maybe, going forward, like if we can, we'll bring in some guests to talk about robotics. Could be researchers, could be hardware manufacturers, could be, really, yeah, maybe different folks working in different part of the value chain of robotics. I guess embodied AI as well. um, or maybe also other teams working on robotics in the crypto space. I think it would be cool to bring some of these folks to come on. Uh, but the main thing we will do is make sure we at least share what we're building. I think that will still be the main thing we want to get out on a regular basis.
Yeah. So you'd say it's really just for us to, I guess, communicate transparently with the community, everything that's going on, I guess, behind the scenes that people might not really be able to see as we are just heads down building them.
Yeah, and also I think it's a discipline that I think we should have on ourselves. So we we
Hmm.
feel like we every 2 weeks we need to go and report something. I think it's good practice. So hopefully we can keep to this. At least twice a month kind of thing. Mm.
Yeah. Awesome. Then yeah, so let's talk about FrodoBots. How about you? Maybe you could take us like right to the very beginning, right? Like
Mm.
where did the idea for any of this come from?
Yeah. So during the pandemic, so at the time I was working on another a friend's startup. So I'm based in Singapore, by the way. So um, and then my brother Sam, who's the co-founder in this project, so he's based in China, and so we thought we should just like geek out over some projects, so we have a reason to stay in touch and whatnot. And so honestly it just started out as a project to geek out, and we decided to just build a kind of like a small sidewalk robot yeah, that can drive itself, something like that, right? So um, we did that for I think nearly half a year. So every weekend we just meet up, like just geek out over it. So the first version of the robot we built, it's in my view, like looking back now, completely in my view, like overbuilt, right? I mean, in that it's got a beefy GPU, it's got a bunch of lidar, like pretty good cameras and all that. Um, but I would say, I mean, as we started building this, w- at least for me, I started to form an opinion that perhaps the bottleneck towards what they would call level 5 autonomy, certainly in sidewalk navigation, is not necessarily a lack of compute or lack of hardware, or I, it could just literally be a lack of data set, real world data set. And then we started looking around. At the time, obviously we are not the first sidewalk robot project. I mean, people have been doing sidewalk robot for years, and in fact, some of them are done by really big companies like Amazon. There are some pretty big startups as well that are decently funded, have been working on this for years. And then it strikes us that something that we realize that, like, nearly everyone, their sidewalk robots cost quite a lot. Um, at the time, we estimate that it's usually, I mean, the BOM, basically the bill of material cost, is probably $10,000 or more. And I think it ends up being around that range, because everyone was trying to do a decent robot, a good robot that
Mhm.
also and many people are trying to do the AI thing from day one. And so what ends up happening is exactly like what we try to do ourselves. Like, when we, even as a hobby, we put the most expensive camera, lidar, and GPU onto the thing. Um, and so, but then, if you take the view that the limitation towards, let's say, truly level 5 autonomous driving, is lack of real world data set, then having robots that cost, like, let's say a used car, right, $10,000 or more, is the opposite of what you want, right? What you really want actually is have really cheap hardware, so that you can get as many of them out there, so that, because each of these robot, in a way, is a data collection device, and especially if you care about gathering data in the real world. So um another thing I realized is that, if your robot costs, say, $10,000 or more, the business model that you ended up having, kind of compelled to take up, is one where basically you have to put these robots on your own balance sheet, right? As a company. Maybe back then this is like still in a zero rate interest rate environment, it's still doable, but especially now, like, it doesn't make sense. Uh, but an even more important thing is that I reckon that if you are forced to put these robots within your own balance sheet as a company, your incentive is actually to make those hardware last as long as possible, right? So that you can depreciate the cost of the hardware over a much longer period of time. Which means your incentive is actually not to update or upgrade your hardware regularly. And I find that that's a very big missed opportunity, because but I mean, but there's nothing you can do if the thing is $10,000 or more. uh Very unlikely that you can actually get to sell these robots, and get them off your balance sheet, especially when these robots are not level 5 yet, right? I think if it's get to level 5, it makes complete sense. $10,000 or even more, it makes sense. But if they're not, if they're only at around, say, level 2, um which means they are not that great, and you still need a huge amount of human supervision, um, then actually, like, we would question whether that's the right way to get to level 5. And so we started looking around, and then we realized, hey, no, no one is uh, trying to do, like, build sidewalk robots that is a lot cheaper. And we reckon that, what if we just build it almost like a toy, something that, at the time, our target internally was just, let's try to build a $500 sidewalk robot. And when we looked around there, we just couldn't find any, right? That it's, uh and so that was enough for me and my brother to kind of do this full time. And then, of course, shortly after that, like, I got you involved, Niresh.
Mhm.
We should also say this, like, me and Niresh, we work together on my second startup. So this is actually my third one, third time founding a startup. But so yeah, me and Niresh go way back. Uh, yeah, but so that was the first hypothesis we have.
Right.
And then, yeah, so that
That
got
was
us.
that was the
Yeah,
origin story of the idea,
yeah,
right?
that's right. Yeah, so
Um,
no crypto, no gaming. We just wanted to build cheap robots. So that was our core thesis, which is still one of our core thesis now. Um and maybe I should just say, like, brought it to today. Like, in fact, we are starting to sell a version of the robot that is just 150, US dollar. So clearly, our initial assumption
that's
of
a
five
big
hundred
drop.
dollars, it's, yeah, is definitely doable, right? I mean, we weren't sure whether we can do it. I mean, we're not hardware people. Is honestly, it's our first time doing hardware, So me and my brother, because I think we're just too naive, so we just thought, okay, let's just try. Maybe we can figure this out. And really, I got to give credit to my brother. He honestly, a lot of this work of driving down the cost is done by him and the small team that we have in Shenzhen. But yeah, I mean, I think that thesis is true. In fact, we can get the cost down to and still have a reasonably working sidewalk robot.
Right.
Um, yeah,
Okay. So even at this early stage, right, was the idea from the very beginning about data collection? Would you
yeah.
say
I mean,
that's the main purpose of the bot
yeah,
from the
yeah.
very
Yes,
start?
that's right. So at the back of my mind, like it is always about embodied AI. It's always about. I mean, at the time, I actually don't know this phrase called embodied AI. I just know that. I mean, if I look at what Tesla had been doing, right, and this is like 3+ years ago. I feel that the only way to explain the premium in the stock price versus say other automakers is the fact that they have this data flywheel.
Hmm.
And um, I think the same kind of philosophy may apply for other kind of robotic types. So cyber robot is very similar to a car. The only difference is that it's being driven on a sidewalk. But the whole idea is still you want to be out there collecting data, and so uh, and if you want more robots, the function of it, like it's just a key function of it. It's not the only function, but one very important function is just to drive down the cost. Um, and yeah, so I obviously we have to make a lot of engineering trade-off, but we felt confident that we can get that because we already knew the trade-off that we wanted to make, which is basically to make a very dumb robot in a way, right? Because like I said, all the other robotic startups, cyborg robotic startups that we know, and I mean honestly, they're doing great work. There are a lot of them still working on it. But because of they I think they are really hardcore roboticists, whereas we're not, right? Uh, they really want a very robust robot that has very decent AI capability out of the box. Whereas I take the view that hey, let's just drive the cost down, and the main way to drive the cost down is just to take out all the AI stuff, right? So it's a dumb robot. We have very very little compute, on device, and therefore and also we take out all the fancy sensors. Like literally, we take the cheapest cameras that we probably can find, and so but by doing so, I mean I felt that we can really piggyback on some of this economy of scale from I guess other adjacent industry like smartphone or even like EV and I would argue maybe even the toy industry, right? Because some these days some of these toys have a fair bit of electronics, and so cameras are cheap. Some of these sensors are cheap and readily available. So you never really supply chain constraint. Although having said that, we did it around like right during pandemic. So I would say for the first half year to 1 year, actually supply chain was a big issue.
Hmm.
Um, um, but yeah, so so yeah, I think that's the right trade off looking back.
Right.
But yeah, that was our only thesis back then. Like just build a cheap robot and see how it goes.
Right.
Yeah.
Very, very
Mm.
interesting. It almost seems a little bit counterintuitive. That basically what you're saying is, in order to be able to collect more data, you're actually technically the robot is collecting less than a lot of other sidewalk robots out there. Maybe you could
No,
elaborate a little bit on
yeah,
uh, how
I'll
that
actually
works.
argue the opposite. You know, I actually think that the value of the data, let's say for every 1 mile that a cheap robot like ours, versus let's say a $10,000, fancy cyber robot that you collect. Yes, it's true they have a lot more sensors. Maybe well, that definitely have lidar and all that. Maybe even radar. So they have, a, I guess, those additional modalities. Um, but I would argue that the data that we collect from a let's call it 1/20th and maybe even like actually less than that, like a few 5% the cost, or 5 to 10% of the origin, like the cost of these other robots. But the value of the data set I think is very similar. um, and the reason why I'll argue is that I mean, obviously, the only so-called real sensors we really have is actually the cameras. And in fact, they are streaming at pretty low resolution because, well, in our case, the bottleneck is actually the networking, right? So this video is streaming through 4G. So obviously, we can't have like 4K videos streaming through.
Hmm.
And um, but I think actually having low resolution video actually is what you need. And because in any case, like a lot of these, I would say other computer vision teams, the first thing they do is actually downsample the videos and the images anyway.
Right.
You can imagine like a somewhat, let's say, partially blind person or let's say even if you take out your glasses, right, you can still navigate the world. Like, so what I'm trying to say is that actually a lot of the inherent, let's say, semantics that is useful for navigation, you don't need 4K or 8K, right? You actually, let's say 720p may work. So
Hmm.
um yeah, so I think, and I think and another thing, maybe it's sorry, I'm talking quite long, but
Yeah.
just
No.
just to
No.
round that
Go for
up,
it.
um if you have a, let's say, a very so-called capable cyborg robot that's able to, let's say, do level 2, right? Level 2 autonomy, which means maybe effectively, let's say, for over a distance of, let's say, 100 meter, it can be, let's say, driven autonomously 99 meters, right? 99% of the time. So it sounds great, right? But there's this 1 meter that maybe some human intervention is needed, right? Or supervision, human intervention. So and but the thing is, because you don't know when this 1 meter will occur, so what you ended up having is that you will need a human to basically supervise that robot throughout the 100 meter. So first of all, you don't get the benefit of really removing the humans in the loop, right? In fact, it's the humans kind of is still in the loop. Um, and but what you can imagine, right now, like out of the 100 meter, maybe only 1 meter is being driven by the human. The other 99 is, let's say, driven by an AI. And I thought that actually the key unlock here is you actually just want to collect data when the car is, or the robot is being controlled or driven by a human, right?
Hmm.
So that is the kind of data that I think we still need, uh, until you really can prove that you have an AI that is at human level. Then maybe, okay, beyond that, the human is not that useful anymore. But until then, you should just learn from the human first. And so having a level 2, like a autonomy kind of cyborg robot that costs $10,000 or more, uh, from the perspective of gathering useful data, to me, just is a very, it's not an efficient way to gather data. So I would actually argue like that what we have is the perfect form
Right.
factor, and also like cost, and also data efficiency. Uh, we actually want every single mile that is driven to be driven by a human being. That's actually what we want to collect, I think.
Right. It just
Yeah,
needs to be good enough to collect all the data that a human would need to drive
E-
this effectively.
exactly. Yeah,
Yes.
and we've seen this, like, we've been doing it for 2+ years.
Hmm.
uh, and Yeah, humans are very capable.
Yeah.
So we
At the
get by
best of
with,
times.
yeah, low late, like, like bad latency. I mean, it can't be super bad, but like
Hmm.
fairly bad latency, pretty low resolution, and somehow the humans can figure out. So my view is that we should just learn from humans until you can really prove that, hey, it's at least as good as human. Then maybe you move on, right? uh yeah.
Yep. Cool.
Yeah.
So you had this robot idea that you guys started working into a prototype, but this was all in the Web 2 world, right?
Yeah,
At
exactly.
what point did crypto get into it?
Yeah, so like I said, we were trying to, I mean, our initial goal was just to get a robot down to $500. And back then, I was very much a skeptic of crypto. I thought of crypto as scam, and very skeptical about like crypto stuff, until one of my friends pointed me to this project called Helium. And I think I didn't actually look into it until like 1 month after he told me about it. So, but I'm so glad that I basically went down the rabbit hole. For some reason, one day I just remember what my friend told me. Okay, I should just take a quick look. But that literally changed my life, because I was just completely mind blown, right? Uh, So for those of you who are like not into crypto, because I know that there'll be robotic researchers who listen to this possibly. Um, so Helium is this decentralized network of like wireless connection. So they started doing this LoRaWAN, which is a kind of wireless protocol where it's very low bandwidth but also very low power. So it's great for IoT use case, right? And the idea is that if you can form a mesh network with all these like LoRaWAN hotspots, you can actually do this, quite efficiently. But it suffers from a classical like chicken and egg issue. Like why would anyone want to, you know, in that case the hotspot is like $500, right? Something like that. Like why would anyone? So is it
Mm-hmm.
even buy bots to start with, right? But so what is ingenious about what they really pioneer is these days everyone call it DPIN, right? Decentralized Physical Infrastructure Network. Back then there was only Helium. There was no such word as DPIN. Um, but they basically minted a crypto token out of thin air, right? Doesn't cost them any money other than some you know development work to throw it out, and then lo and behold, they basically tell people that hey, if you buy this $500 hardware, you set it up, you and you start basically sharing your network, right? And if there's someone else nearby you who also bought the same hotspot, and both of you kind of validate against each other that hey, you are sharing and he is also sharing, right? Then both of you receive some kind of token, and somehow just by doing so, they managed to crowdsource I think close to a million. I think close to a million like
Mm-hmm.
hotspots within a very short period of time, like less than it's
I think it was 2 years or
yeah,
something.
less than 2 years.
Yeah.
So if you look at it as a Kickstarter kind of crowdsourcing project, is so impressive, right? Well, so firstly, the financial outlay that they managed to crowdsource is like $500 plus, like literally like a million. So call it $500 million, right? US dollar, or just financial capital,
Mm-hmm.
just in securing the hardware. But what is even more impressive is that it's so geographically spread out. If you open the map on Helium website, it's just everywhere, right? And so I was just totally mind blown, like, and because my first startup actually have a lot of this chicken and egg issue, like which I never meant like figure out. And so when I saw this model, I was like, holy cow! Like these guys just created this thing called a helium token, and uh, and they managed to just crowdsource it so quickly and so geographically spread out. And then when I looked at what we were trying to do, I mean, at that point we are just still prototyping. I have no idea. Like I think our first prototype is probably still a few $1,000s, right? So, but if we can really get to $500, right, then I think hey, they're also selling a hardware at $500. We should totally just learn from what they did, right? So I think that's when I finally took the red pill um, on this part of crypto, and these days, like I said, they call it DeepIn,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm 100% right believer in this. I think DeepIn is going to eat the world. It's going to revolutionize a lot of this infrastructure network that used to be very centralized. Have very heavy upfront capital investment required. So I think this crowdsourcing aspect is just fascinating to me, and yeah. So I think shortly, this is like 3 months after we started the project, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we started, and I still remember, like I think I was telling you, hey, let's there was this. Oh, and then at the time we would say, okay, like how do we do this, right? And I have no idea like what is blockchain, like what exactly is it. And then you know, so obviously we're not going to create our own blockchain. Like I have no idea what's L1, L2, all this like it's,
Mm-hmm.
all this word doesn't mean anything to me back then. But then what happened was I just started googling around, and then I saw that hey, there's this thing called Solana, um, that appears to be quite cheap, right? Because I started to learn that hey, it costs like so-called tokens or money in a way, like to do things on blockchain. And obviously, I have no idea how to play a blockchain, so I've used someone else's blockchain. And at the time, Ethereum was I mean, this is near the peak of the market, so like okay, I can't afford it. So there's this thing called Solana, and then what? It just so happened that Solana have a hackathon um, around literally the week
In
after I
Singapore.
discovered helium, like 2 weeks after I. So it was so.
Yeah.
I think me and Niresh, like both of us, yeah, and yeah, we just went there, and then yeah, so that was it.
That
So we
was it.
just yeah, um, yeah. So I mean, it's like 2+ years now ago. We still have not have our like crypto token with this project, and um, I mean, we do have, I guess, this meme coin thing called Sam now, but we still don't have the tokens. So we will have an announcement, a very significant announcement soon, that will really explain our thoughts about the kind of tokenomics we want to adopt. And you know, it's taken us 2 years to settle on one that we believe in. But also, I honestly like I think on the hardware side, we also needed to take the time to test out the hardware and really drive down the cost, right? Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so I'll say that's a second big hypothesis that or thesis that we have, right? Cheap hardware, but then combined with like crypto incentive, which basically is DP, if you think about it. So
Right.
yeah.
A little bit more on this, right? So, how do you see the network effects for a sidewalk robot if you're drawing parallels from, let's say, another project like Helium? Like, what is the network in this sense in your mind?
Yeah, I mean, the way I think about it, obviously, like robotics is probably the hardest of all hardware because it's this damn hardware actually move,
Mhm,
right?
mhm. Yeah.
But ultimately, I know that from a data perspective, right, what you want is diversity in the data set. Meaning, yeah, you don't just want to collect data in a specific city, you want to collect in many different cities, which represents different kind of neighborhood, different kind of like urban landscape, different weather conditions, and all that, and also like just different, I would say, like culture of the humans, in those
Mhm,
cities, because they are likely gonna, it could be the same robot, but they may treat the robot very differently, right? And so I think the diversity of data is important, right? Geographical diversification, and because this is a cyber robot, so their range are kind of limited, right? So honestly, if you zoom out, like if you it will look exactly like the map of helium, like in my view, like an ideal map for us would be something like look like helium. That's, you have dots everywhere. It's only when you zoom very much in, then you realize, oh, okay, these dots are actually moving slowly.
mhm.
And so in that sense, it should be, yeah, very geographic. So we should also just learn from, like, uh something like helium, where the geographical diversity is critical,
Right.
for something like our robot. Yeah.
And in this case, basically what you're saying is that like this geographical diversity contributes significantly to the quality of the data that you would get, and that's why
Yeah.
it benefits significantly from being a
Yeah,
deepen
yeah.
project in this sense,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, the quality of the data, to me, it's part of the quality. In fact, is the diversity of the underlying data. So, um, the way to think about it is, so in a way, like, you know, we make we make that mistake all the time as well. I mean, or we will tell people roughly, oh, we open source, let's say, 2,000 hours of data.
Hmm.
But if you think about it, if you have 2,000 hours of video, but all those 2,000 is just a video of a black screen,
Hmm.
you know, uh, so it matters a lot what goes into those 2,000 hours, right? And so if you are
And
able
that
to,
it's not all just the exact same bot or from the exact same city.
yeah, you want really a diversity in terms of geography. I mean, I think even for the same location, however, like, it does take, you do want actually a fair number of hours in the same location, because even with the same locations, through the seasons, even between, in the morning to lunch time, in the up to evening, the same location can have a very different, like, especially in places, in cities where there are a lot, maybe in the morning time it's like peak period, so a lot of people, um and so all these, I think, are still good data set to collect. um but the diversity in location certainly is very important. Yeah.
Cool. Um, so I guess another question: where did the name FrodoBots come from?
Ah.
Just because
uh
I get asked this a
yeah.
lot, and
Yeah.
I think it's
Well, let's just say this is a random name I pick. Okay. Okay. Yeah, let's just put it this way. Yeah, it's just a name I like. That's it. Yeah.
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 Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess that's most of what we were going to talk about. I guess the origins of FrodoBots. How would
Mhm.
you describe FrodoBots as a company today?
I mean, I should mention, actually, along the way, there's another hypothesis that we really lean onto, right? So, like I said, one core thesis is cheap robots. The other thesis is this, like, crypto incentive, right? Which is the two first combine and become DPIN, right? The third thing that we really lean onto is gaming, and like I said, we didn't set up to do a gaming. Like we are not gaming guys. I've never built any so-called try to attempt to build any games before this.
Mhm.
Um, and honestly, this one we also just kind of fall into it. So at the time, I mean, at the I would say for the first half year, we were trying to, well, firstly get the hardware stable and get the cost down and all that. Um, but the use case we have in mind was just like let's say last mile delivery, right? Delivering food, delivering grocery, which pretty much all the other cyber robot projects are all doing, and it makes sense, right? I mean, um, so we started like literally driving our bots into like Starbucks, like eateries, and the way we would do this is like, let's say we order something on DoorDash or something like that, and then we will say, hey, self pickup, and then we just drive the bot inside, let's say Starbucks. And because the robots, even in a very early version, we already have a speaker microphone. So what we do is literally, you know, uh, drive the robot into the Starbucks and then try to like pick up and talk to someone and say, hey, my order number is 123, and then we do this kind of thing. So um, I would say, I mean, I must have done this probably nearly 100 times. I want to say and when it works, it's beautiful, right? Because it does
Mhm.
prove that this can be done. But the problem is like, I mean, by my estimate, it works maybe say 90% at most of the time, and I feel that 90% is just nowhere near good enough. It needs to be basically 100%. And so the question is like, um, what will get us the last 10%, right? So in my view, like you need basically more robust hardware, which obviously will drive the cost up, and then you also need way better AI. And so it becomes a very chicken and egg thing, right? Like because the AI is not ready. And I mean, this is also my suspicion as well, like as to why people have been working on cyber robot for so long now, and yet they couldn't, in my view, like really scale to where you see cyber robot everywhere in every city. And I think this is basically the cyber robot is nearly there, but nearly there is not still not good enough, right? To really replace a human. So, but while we were doing all this testing ourselves, I also noticed something. I realized, like us in the team were all kind of like lining up to drive the bots, because it's kind of fun to drive it.
Mhm.
And then after a while, one day I just started to realize, hey, uh, this is exactly like kind of like Euro Truck Simulator. I mean, for those, Euro Truck Simulator is basically a game where where you try to drive a truck literally in a simulator, and you can drive for hours. Uh, and and then yeah, it's not like a game where like you have a huge amount of like gamers, but it has a very loyal following. Um, and I mean, I played before. I won't say I'm a hardcore fan, but I get the gameplay. And so that's when I started thinking, hey, you know what? Actually, if these bots are not going to be ready anytime soon to really replace a human for like last mile delivery, maybe gaming could be the wedge, right? And I would say that gaming has a few advantage, right? So imagine if gaming is literally the utility, or so-called, like I call it the use case. We already make the whole thing a lot easier to scale, because imagine if you were to do delivery. Actually, you're talking about a three-sided marketplace, right? You're talking about someone who buy the food, you're talking about the restaurants, you're talking about, or maybe even four-sided. Actually, you're talking about the human, that's like we call it teleoperator, who are remotely controlling the robots, and then you're also talking about the people who physically own the robot, right? Maybe the people who own the robots are the restaurants, right? Then in that case it could be three-sided, but it is complicated, right? Whereas if it's literally, hey, this robot has no real utility, you are just, uh, in fact, yeah, it's just for you to play a game, right? And I feel that there will be a group of gamers around the world who take this kind of gameplay, and so we really lean into that. And um, I would say we try very hard, and up to today, I don't think we have really proven that thesis, in a very big way. But I think that is because we are still limited by the number of hardware we have, right? and we're limited by the number of hardware because we don't have the tokenomics, or we don't have the deepin thing going yet. Uh, but I'm very optimistic that eventually this thing called robotic gaming, right? Usually these two words don't go together, but I'm very optimistic this thing will one day take off, and it will be a very sizable niche within like all genre of it will be its own genre of gaming. I don't know whether you guys know this movie um, called Real Steel, right? So
With
something of
Hugh
that nature.
Jackman and
Yeah.
Evangeline Lilly.
Yes. So
Yeah.
where literally sometime in the future, you have humans that control some kind of humanoid, and then the humanoid robots go and fight and all that. It's just for entertainment, right? But I think um, that actually have a lot of legs. And gaming, it's can be a huge industry in and of itself. So and yeah, and we started really leaning towards like the gaming use case, even with the Cyber Robot. And um we also started experimenting, creating like some TikTok videos just to show what we're doing. And then one day one of our video went viral, right? Like 5 million views or something like that. And then we have a bunch of gamers who suddenly show up and say, hey, I want to drive this robot remotely. So and yeah, so and that's like a year ago. And since then we've been having actually really I think definitely thousands of gamers have tried
Mhm.
um playing our game, and some of them, not a lot, but some of them actually do pay us, I would say hundreds of US dollar.
Yeah.
And so clearly there are people like that. Maybe because also like that there's I should also add there's a virtual touring aspect to it, right?
I
So
think that's a very big attraction for a lot of people.
yeah, I mean for me as well, like sometimes I mean these days we have so many robots, and I think we've tested in over 30 cities, something like that, right, Niresh? So
40 plus, yeah.
40 plus already. Oh my
Globally.
gosh,
Yeah.
yeah. So like there are many cities I've never been before, and I don't think I'll ever be able to go in my lifetime. And it's so interesting to and these probably places in these cities are probably a very ordinary neighborhood, but I still just find it super fascinating.
Hmm.
We have a couple of bots, no, in fact more than a couple of bots in Africa, right?
Yeah.
And so just driving around Kenya, it's like even for like half an hour, it's such a fascinating experience knowing that you're doing in real life. um yeah, so I think that there's something there. And so I'm very optimistic the entertainment value is there. And since the first TikTok viral, we have a couple more that went viral. So I also reckon that this is also something that has a big, maybe let's call it esports, or very also a very live streamable kind of content. Like I can imagine, and actually we did have a bunch of streamers and pretty big streamers that would just show up and then live stream the game.
Hmm.
So I think it has that potential. And then finally, I think because this happened in real life, right? I think there's a lot of augmented reality thing that we can build over time into the gameplay. So I think all these things just set it up very well. On yeah, it's the key here though is that we're always gonna be limited by the hardware. So hopefully in a couple of weeks time when we announce the tokenomics, that will finally change, and then I'm hopeful that next year we'll have orders of magnitude more of our hardware out there. Yeah. Uh, yeah, but I am very bullish on the gaming aspect of things.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
I am as well. And thank you. I think that was a very good, like, holistic overview of the main things that like Protobots is working on.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna move on, I guess, to some of the highlights from the past
Mm-hmm.
few months.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I guess the first place we'll start, like you alluded to this just now, the 2K data set. Just gonna bring this up. Maybe you could tell people a little bit about it and the kind of
Yeah.
data that we have.
Yeah. So like I said, from day one, we wanted to make a meaningful difference for robotics AI or embodied AI. So, and we know that data, basically real world data, is a huge part of it. So even as we built the hardware, we already started working on so-called data pipeline. Um, so as you can see here, like this is our first attempt to open source something. It's my first time open sourcing anything. So yeah, so we basically put out, as you can see, about 2,000 hours of real world driving data, and these are collected really from gamers who are remotely controlling the robots we have. And I think this release, this first release, I think we have maybe a dozen city, right? Um, and basically the data that is inside this data set, obviously there are the videos, right, coming from the front and the back camera, but actually, even to me, the most important thing is actually the data set there is the human control, right? What the human is either doing on his game controller or on his keyboard. And so, yeah, as you can see here, this is collected from a bunch of cities. Um,
You can see they're
and if
pretty spread out as well from
Yeah, so
here.
that's the diversity that I'm talking about, right? Really diverse in terms of, I mean, in cities, and some of these cities we have different bots in multiple different locations in the same city. So, um, and I mean, being such a small team, and uh, the reason honestly we can do like in so many cities is because the robot is cheap. You know? So I think from very early on we already benefited from the fact that our hardware is cheap. So despite us being a very small team, very little resources, we were able to do this again because it's the robot is cheap. So yeah, but anyway, to my knowledge, this is the largest data set of its kind, right? And when I say of its kind, meaning like urban navigation data set. Um, and yeah, in fact, right now we're working with um, a top robotic lab from a top university. And right now they're writing a academic paper now. So hopefully, once they're done with that, we'll open source the next release, which is coming to about 8,000 hours. So again, bigger than that. And I'm really hopeful that once we have the deep thing going, hopefully we 100x that amount very quickly. And so um, yeah, but basically it took us nearly a year to get this done. But basically the data pipeline is quite stable now, meaning anytime someone try to control the robot, the data is collected automatically, stored properly, everything is timestamped properly. And so and yeah, I think later on when we talk about the Earth Rover challenge, I'll bring into it. But honestly, this is the reason why we started talking to really and starting to partner with, I would say, really world class researchers in robotics, because we have this data set that is so unique and is of a decent size.
Right.
Um, yeah.
Okay. Um, I guess on the crypto side, we have also been partnering with YGG.
Mhm.
Maybe you could talk a little bit about the nature of that partnership.
Yeah, so we really love the guys from YGG, and took us a while to finally get to them. But especially once we started leaning into this gaming thing, right? And obviously we have the deep in angle. I think it just makes sense to actually really tap into this Web3 gaming crowd. Uh, um, and so yeah, I mean, so in fact, recently we, YGG have their Play Summit in the Philippines, and I couldn't go, but Niresh represented us. Um, yeah, so we ended up working with them to really get the community, basically the Web3 gamers, to actually start playing our game and get in-game points. Like I said, at the point right now we don't have the tokens, and you really can see like the early innings of what will happen if really we do have the actual tokens, because we really they really, through them, they help us activate a lot of like gamers to actually actively play the game. Yeah, so this is, I think, yeah, maybe Neeraj, you can share like actually what, since I'm not
All
there,
right.
like,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So I mean, like we were fortunate enough to meet a lot of our gamers uh who have been playing our game for months, basically, right? Like I would say the vast majority of the people who have been returning to play the FrodoBots game at this point have been from the Philippines, and a lot of them are YGG gamers. So we could essentially give them, you know, the sort of like in person communication that they might not necessarily always have had, and we could definitely like learn uh, very directly the things that they like, which I think is crucial for us as we're trying to build, this thing called robotic gaming, right? It is a very new space, and there are so many things that are very different in a in when you're trying to drive a physical device versus like playing a computer game, which is purely software. Like if you're driving a robot, suddenly you'll have like a GPS that's going to drift, right? That's a very novel experience for someone who's trying to play a game. You probably don't know um, what's going on the first two times, but it's something you'll adjust to very quickly. Um, so it was, you know, great for us to see not just that, but like all the different ways in which people relate to the bot in different in ways that you might not expect. And also, I guess, just to meet a great community of gamers.
Yeah, in my view, they are going to be one of our most important, really strategic partners, like for the longest time, for years to come. Um, I mean, they have a thesis of this thing called future of work, where they think that against through tokenization, they can actually get this huge community, you know, um, to do. I don't know whether X to earn is the way to put it, but I guess it's similar to that, right? So
Yeah.
um, I think in our particular case, like there's the play to earn thing, but we have a very believable story that the end output of this play is something useful because the data is going to be it's so unique and also valuable for research. And so I think we have basically a very strong strategic alignment. So I think we'll definitely get to continue to do more things with them. So yeah, very very good partner, but probably one of our most important partners going forward. Mm.
Awesome. Okay, so I guess next on the agenda is what was the first Earth Rovers challenge at IROS 2024?
Yeah, Earth Rover Challenge. So yeah, so this was a big effort that just happened last month in Abu Dhabi. So the setup is as such, right? So obviously we have a game that we started having gamers play, right? So we kind of have an idea what humans is able to do, right? And maybe I should explain a little bit. So the game right now, or at least in the past, the way it's been set up is like a navigation game where you start with a checkpoint, a start point, and then you go to checkpoint A, checkpoint B, and then you basically try to navigate the robot and bring it back to the start point. And once you do that, you unlock some in-game points, right? So basically a navigation game. And like I said, we started having so-called some human leaderboard, and we know roughly a good human gamer, like what kind of level can they have. And like I also said just now, we started collecting data on the end, on the back end. And then we started actually talking to some researchers, and and we are basically really lucky to start working on some, with some researchers that really see the potential in this. So in fact, Niresh, if you can just go towards the end, we can show the co-organizers. So really
Yeah.
want to give credit to those guys. So yeah, as you can see from this group, right? So it's really actually mainly a group of uh, I mean, I'll consider them really world class, like embodied AI, robotics AI researchers, mostly from Google DeepMind, but also from academia as well. And and so yeah, I told them, hey, look, we are starting to have pretty sizable data set, and then at the same time we have human benchmarks. In that terms, it's called human benchmarks, right? Um, but more importantly, we have this kind of fleet that we have built up over time, in a bunch of cities, right? What if we just kind of organize an AI versus human competition? Let's just see how good are all these so-called autonomous navigation model, the state of the art stuff, presumably, where they stand against human gamers, right? Because we already kind of know where humans stand in this game. And so, yeah, it turns out to be a very interesting like proposition to them. And so, yeah, we partner up with them, and then we basically co-organize this our first Earth Rover challenge. That's what it's called. So the general idea, yeah, and yeah, you should tweet. So um, basically, it happened at IROS, which is probably one of the biggest robotic conference, and this year happens to be in Abu Dhabi. And so you can see the result, right? We have a tweet thread over it. Uh, TLDR, basically the AIs are very far behind what human can do, like far, far behind. And so, but I mean, so as you can see, we ended up having some robotic labs from various universities that take part, and they basically take on the exact same navigation mission, right? And then we just pit them against humans, right? So, but as you can see in this video here, this is actually at the venue in Abu Dhabi. So we actually flew some of these like top gamers in our leaderboard to Abu Dhabi to kind of represent humanity. And then at the same time, we have these robotic labs, from various universities that basically what they did was they deploy their model in the cloud, right? Because what happened is that the actual competition is happening. Even though the so-called competition is organized in Abu Dhabi, but the actual robots they are not like really in Abu Dhabi. They're all over, right? So, Neeraj, you can scroll down. In fact, we can show them the first one. Yeah, so in this case, let's say it's actually in Kenya, right? So our first mission, so you can imagine both human and AI try to drive one of our robots, let's say in Kenya. uh, and this is a good example, right? So there are actually 14 checkpoints. All the humans, which is in blue, they all complete all the checkpoints pretty quickly. The three are actually the AI teams, and you can see that they none of them completed it. And in fact, they took a long time, right? And despite that, they still couldn't complete the mission. And so, and this happens time and again, across many different cities. So, um, yeah, but so I think this is a very like, if I'm not wrong, this is really the first time where such a I think the robotics researchers, they call it like in the wild, right? Meaning uh, with actual robots, where you just have AI trying to do this in the real world. Um, Most of the competition actually either they do it in simulation or do it in a very controlled environment, right? I think ours really stand out at 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 at, at IROS because literally the robots are out there. The other thing we did was actually really cool in my view, and again, like this points towards the esports potential of this is we basically live stream the 2 days of competition on YouTube, right? So I think at one point our YouTube stream have like more than 1,000 people turning in, which is quite exciting to see, right? So this is our first iteration, and I think for us and also the other co-organizers, the guys from DeepMind, I think we are very happy with how this whole thing turned out, and also as you can see, a big shout out. The last picture actually a lot the gamers are actually all YGG gamers, and so in the months leading up to the official competition, actually we kind of partner with them and actually really get and they really help us a lot by activating a big group of the YGG gamers. So yeah, so we have them show in Abu Dhabi. It was super intriguing to see. Um, yeah, I mean how these YGG gamers, human gamers, like fare against the AIs. And so I'm also happy to announce we also just found out last week that we just got approved for the second iteration of this competition. So this Earth Rover Challenge number 2 is going to happen next year in May, and this is happening at ICRA, which is actually the biggest robotics conference in the world. It's going to happen in May. So our goal, I mean, it will be the same organizers. We're working again with the same group of researchers, from DeepMind and whatnot, and our goal is to really have a lot more teams, um, to and hopefully a lot more locations, right? And so, yeah, really looking forward to that one. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I think that's Earth Rover, yeah,
Yeah,
challenge.
that was the first Earth Rovers challenge. So I did also manage to meet up with our human gamers while I was in the Philippines, and they definitely seem to have enjoyed it and would definitely look forward to the next iterations, as I think like everyone on the organizing committee or who was involved with setting it up is as well. Okay, so next on the list of things we've been working on is the Earth Rovers SDK,
Mm,
which was coincidentally what all the AI teams were using to connect to the bots.
mm.
Maybe you could tell us a little bit about
Yeah,
what that is.
yeah. So it's a very simple set of SDK where uh, y- you see, right, from our perspective, whether it's a human remotely controlling the robot or an AI controlling the robot, uh, to us it's basically the same thing, right? It's basically we send you the video and then you give us the control data, and and then therefore you control the robot, right? So uh, effectively that's what the SDK does. So we basically open that capability so that developers or researchers can actually directly assess the robots that they actually want to remotely control. So Um, and during the Earth Rover Challenge, this is exactly the SDK that these teams from universities actually use. Because like I said, they basically build out AI models that they then host in some server somewhere, and then by accessing through the SDK, they are able to control these robots right in all the different cities. And so I would say it's very battle tested actually because of this challenge, by the researchers. So we recently decided to just completely like open source this, and then so yeah, basically anyone who buy one of our robots uh, can basically, if they are a developer or researchers, they can quite easily just build their own autonomous navigation model, and then try to test it with their own robot. And so I think the appeal there is there are a few things. So I mean, because of the way it's been set up, um, I would say there are researchers who, even though they want to try robotic like autonomous like model, they actually don't want to deal with the hardware. They just want to focus on building the model. And so because the hardware is so cheap, and also in a way we take care of the networking, and then also on top of that we provide a data set. So and with this SDK now, they can just very easily, so literally buy get the robot, and then start really focusing on what they really is interested, which is some kind of autonomous like model. Could be a VLM or VLA kind of model. So it allows them to quickly get into building and testing in the real world, right? Instead of just simulation. So I think that's a big point. Uh, I think another interesting point that I think we started hearing when we were working with these universities for the competition is that typically for most robotists, they don't make the kind of trade-off that we make, which is usually the robots themselves have a very decent compute, right? Usually a decent GPU on edge, uh, because usually they don't want to deal with latency issue, right? The latency should be, let's say, sub 50 millisecond or something like that. Um, but in our case, because we do the opposite, right? We will say, hey, the latency could be pretty bad, could be half a second or more. Um, and there's zero compute, right? So now they're being forced to do the compute in the cloud. But actually, if you think about it, right, it actually really opens up the opportunity in terms of research as well. Like, because now it's in the cloud, in theory, you can use the biggest model, way bigger model than what you may otherwise are forced to use, because like usually the edge compute is way smaller compute than whatever you can get very cheaply on the cloud. So it's just a very different trade-off. I'm not saying that one is better than the next. It's just different trade-off. And so I think it also set it up in a very interesting research way, where builders or AI researchers can really test out very robust and in fact foundational models. In fact, when we talk about something, we should talk about it, is because it's fundamentally that's the idea, right? You you get way higher intelligence potentially at the expense of maybe not so great latency, right? So
Yep.
and that's what the SDK hopefully allows a lot more builders and developers to quickly get going with the. So I think since we released the kind of the SDK and also kind of the pricing of this robot, we have actually quite a lot of interest from academia, like universities. Maybe from a STEM perspective, they want to maybe use this like almost like hardware platform to teach undergrad or maybe even graduate robotic courses. So I think next year we're going to see a fair bit of this, hopefully, kind of use case. So yeah, so that's the SDK. Yeah,
Cool. Very, very exciting stuff. And I guess one last point, which you kind of like touched on a little bit before. Um, what robots do we have right now?
yeah,
So we have the FrodoBots Zero and the FrodoBots Mini.
yeah. I guess if you can share screen, you can show people. Yeah, it's yeah. Maybe we should have shown it earlier. But anyway, yeah. So
Yeah.
this is it. So as you can see, the website is shop.frodobots.com. Is literally just a Shopify site, right? Where so if you scroll down, I think you can see, yeah, the Zero and the Mini. So Zero is basically the bigger bot, right? So $300, and then Mini is literally a Mini, $150. So the Mini, it's how should it's I don't know whether you guys can see in the video, but it's really tiny. Just think of it like a toy RC car. The weight is less than it's around 1.4 kg. So it's something that you can lift up one hand. In fact, you can use your wrist and do it. So um yeah, as you can see, you can control it with different game controller, keyboard, and whatnot. uh yeah, I mean, you can drive at night as well. These things can turn on the spot, which actually really helps for very tight corner, especially in urban settings. With zero, it's a bigger board, but you can actually fold it. And so quite compact and portable. And like I said, this thing have been tested in many different environments. We were, I mean, I was genuinely surprised that it handled so well in snow conditions.
Hmm.
So, and these things have been through like literally thunderstorm, and somehow they survive and still work. A couple of our bots were in Abu Dhabi, so this is like through the summer, right? Really hot Middle East summer, and somehow they still survive. So
Kind of
very
snow or
battle,
desert.
yeah, very battle tested. So and that's why I said, like, I mean, hardware is hard. You do have to spend the time, and but I'm glad we actually went through the last 2 years of pain, because we've learned so much, like real operational lessons, and see how things actually break, all sorts of ways. And those lessons, I think, allow us to make, better trade-off in terms of like the design of the hardware, or the design of the gaming, and maybe eventually the design of the whole tokenomics, because we know how much limit can we push, right? uh these ideas. Yeah.
Okay. So I guess in summary, we have data we are producing. We
Mm-hmm.
have a gaming aspect that we are actively working on.
Mm-hmm.
We have an SDK. So basically anyone can train their own models on, right, and deploy them directly on whatever robot they have, as long as it's an Earth rover unit. And then we have bots that are getting cheaper as well, right? Like these
Yep.
are, the main aspects of what FrodoBots has been working on. And I guess where, you know, the only thing we have left now is this meme coin that
Yeah.
we released
Yeah.
about 2 weeks ago now.
Yes. 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 Yeah.
So yeah, tell us about Sam.
Yeah. So the uh hmm. Yeah. So backstory of Sam. So Sam went from idea to launch in 6 days, I think, if not 7 days. That's all. So
Hmm.
it's not something that is like, I mean, all the things we say so far, honestly, there's a lot of, I don't know whether to call it strategic thinking, but we definitely have like core thesis that we wanted to test and whatnot. Right? It's kind of like serious and whatnot, right? Whereas Sam is honestly just an experiment that we just wanted to quickly throw out, right? But I think now that we've done it, I think it's definitely something that we'll put, a lot of effort into to improving over time. And um, so the background to Sam is that, and this is something very recent, right? Maybe let's call it about 4 or 5 weeks ago, just over a month. Um, Suddenly there's this explosion of AI agents on chain, right? And so, uh, yeah, so you have like Truth Terminal, uh, which is basically an AI that's tweeting, on Twitter, very interesting tweets, but it's done by an AI. And then somehow this and it starts to ask for its human overlord to, hey, can I have a meme coin? So uh, the fellow went to create a meme coin called Goat, and then it basically, I don't know what is the market cap now. I think at some point it was like $1 billion. So clearly went crazy. And then, but along with that, there are a lot of other AI agents. Actually, to be honest, like these things have been brewing in the background. I feel it's just a matter of time that this will come out, and then yeah. So I think the timing was literally about a month ago. Um, a couple of these really like break out, and certainly in terms of if you look at token prices, crazy market cap. Now these are meme coins, right? So
Hmm.
it's hard to tell what is the fair value of fair value for this meme coin. Um, you know, uh, but because these AI agents have started taking off, and because actually around the same time, so I already actually have started to buy into the idea that AI agents is going to be a big use or rather the other way around, a big use case of crypto going forward is literally AI agents, right? AI agents is going to just take up a lot more block space over time than humans users. So that was I have this thesis for a while now. Um, and then the other thing is also like on the meme coin space, um, I started to come around to seeing meme coins as, I don't know whether capital formation is the right word, but it is the manifestation or financial manifestation of a culture, right? Maybe that's one way to put it. It's like there is a market price to a religion. I don't know whether this is yeah, but it is very much like that, right? So and
The
it's
financial
hard.
measure of a cult,
Yes,
essentially.
exactly. Yeah, and it's in real time. You can see it, and it's a very strange phenomenon. But I think there are already like meme coins that survive at least 1-2 cycles, right? And has got a very big, right? I mean, look
Hmm.
at Doge, right? I mean, um, I think Elon Musk said like the most entertaining like uh uh path is probably the most likely outcome, right? So look at right. I mean, Doge is literally the most influential department now, probably in the coming administration in US. But anyway,
Right.
so I think yeah, so I started to think that there is something to meme coin, and obviously like I've been talking for an hour about like this big north star about solving embodied AI. So all these are very heavy, like serious utility. Even the gaming thing is actually to solve AI, right? To serve advancement embodied. So all this sounds very heavy. Um, and honestly, that is still gonna be our like north star, right? That we really, and like I said, we have a big announcement in a couple of weeks time where we'll talk about that. Um, but you can imagine for serious projects, so-called quote unquote serious project that have real life utility, oftentimes there's a lot of other consideration that is nothing to do with technicality, but more just to do with maybe compliance or maybe strategic consideration that 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 forces you as a builder, or rather, that really limits the design surface that you can have as a builder.
Hmm.
And but back to the timeline, right? So like I said, like AI agents blew up, right? And so I started to I said, oh, this thing, okay, finally has blew up. But of course, I was also shocked that the market can go so crazily. And then I realized, hey, actually we have all the ingredient to throw out an embodied AI agent within a few days. Because guess what? We just finished the robotic competition, right? So the SDK already works. In fact, we already have multiple research labs using our SDK, right? Using the AI model, which is basically AI agents. Right? I mean, that's another word thing about it, right? That are remotely controlling, autonomously these physical robots. And so yeah, so I decided that we can actually build this very quick and just throw it out, and so because it can be done so quick, we just decided let's just do it and see what happens. And so I knew the guys from Virtuals for about half a year now, and so even back then when we first met them, I told them, hey, let's do something together at some point. But at that point, like they are not ready. We are also not ready. We don't have a proper SDK that are well tested, and they were also working on that and the thing. But I think it's very impressive what they've been over time, and really happy for them. Obviously their tokens is trading very very well now. Um, and then they also have a couple of really breakout AI agents that have been on top. So it was a very easy thing. Um, I mean, we've never launched any token or like meme coin before, right? And I know that they are already working on this platform for AI agents, so it was a very easy partnership. So I literally just call up, the co-founder, and then hey, let's do something, and then it was a straight yes. So yeah, we launched this really quickly, and then so yeah, Sam basically, as you can see, is I think this is the so Sam. The idea for Sam is this: the way we set up Sam, uh, we imagine Sam to be SAM literally stands for small autonomous motherfucker. Okay, so very vulgar, right? And um, but I thought it's the right. Anyway, okay. I mean, it wasn't any strategic thought. Like I said, this thing was done in a few days. Um, but I thought of an interesting character to build up Sam around would be Sam should be some s- someone who thinks of himself as Chuck Norris embodied, right? But in reality, he's a lot more like Kevin Hart, right? So actually, he just talk big, but actually, ultimately, he's trapped in a very tiny, like our robot, right? Especially our mini robot. It's a tiny robot that anyone, even a kid, can easily bully. So, um, and but I always find like this character, like the typical character that Kevin Hart likes to play in movies. Um, Another character that we were thinking about Sam is actually for those of you who watch Slam Dunk, Hanamichi, the main character there, also someone who talk very big, um, but actually is very underlyingly very insecure. In a way, that's why they talk big. But you 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 as a reader or as a viewer, you're drawn to them because they are actually at the very core. They have something very pure in them, and I think in our case for Sam, the pure thing about Sam is that it should have an insatiable curiosity to explore the world, right? So in other words, we want to build Sam into someone who is actively trying to explore the world, right? That's it. And so um yeah, but as you can see right now, I mean, this is literally the live stream that is ongoing 24/7 pretty much. It's been live streaming. So Sam has been live streaming. So the idea for Sam right now is that every a few hours, Sam will basically teleport into different robots in different cities. Sorry, if Niresh, if you can keep sharing, yeah. Maybe you can share the whole tweet,
Yeah,
the Twitter
that's where
page.
I
Yeah.
was going to.
So so the main thing it does is it just does this 24/7 live stream, and but it would change the physical robots like every couple of hours, right? So I have no idea where it is right now. It's one of our robots in a city, maybe in Africa right now. I don't know.
I believe he is somewhere in Mexico.
Mexico. Okay,
Yeah.
interesting. Cool, cool. Yeah, but okay. The thing is, even though we have a GPS on this physical robot, so obviously we the team know, but actually Sam doesn't know. The only thing Sam knows is the front camera and the back camera. That's it, right? So that's the setup, and we will basically give Sam uh access to different robots, right? And so like every few hours we'll switch it to a different locations, right? And then we'll just let Sam do his thing. So Sam, it basically right now it's a pretty rudimentary, but already fairly capable, in my view, actually, autonomous like model that is constantly moving around, right? So if you can just go through a stream, if you can like just show the live stream. So right now, so actually this there's a new thing that I want to highlight that we just literally launched this morning. Um, so right now, as you can see, like this is what Sam sees. So Sam sees the front camera and also the back camera, right? So almost like a 360 view. Uh, but as you can see, like we are asking Sam to kind of display or read out what is in his mind as he's controlling the robot, right? So you can see here there's a plan of action, right? Sam is saying, "Hey, or Sam's vision, right? Sam is saying, I see a dirt path, right, with trees and bushes behind me, the path, blah, 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 right? So I'm what's in front of me, what's behind me, and then and therefore what is his course of action. Now, um, now after a while, after 1-2 minutes, you realize it's quite repetitive. But I think this already is super interesting to me, right? Because now we kind of have this feedback loop where we are getting Sam to tell us what he's thinking, so that because when I say we, that means me and Niresh and the team, we now have a feedback where we can tune the AI so that hopefully over time, Sam really gets to be more adventurous, right? We can tune it to be more adventurous, right? Once we understand his reasoning, right? And then tune it to, hey, maybe Sam should, just be more daring and move faster, go a longer distance and things like that, right? Uh, the other thing I should also highlight here is that right now, the current model of SAM doesn't really have short-term memory, right? And that's a big problem because if you really want Sam to explore the world, it needs to know what he has just recently been, let's say a few minutes ago. Otherwise, it will keep going to the same place. It's like a Groundhog Day, right? Like it's like keep waking up and have no idea what just happened, right? So, um, but yeah, I think I mean, going back to the point about like having a meme coin and then like the serious part of the project, right? I mean, if we just always do the serious part of the project, we would never do all these things that we're experimenting. Like we would have never thought of trying to build an AI ourselves and then get the AI to tell us his chain of thoughts, right? Another thing, as you can see, we're starting to ask Sam to kind of ship post a little bit, right? Kind of, it's not really a selfie, but just take a photo and then just ship post a little bit, and then but also do a little bit of geoguessing, right? So right now over here he thinks that he's in like Malta, and then he also then thinks that he's in Mauritius,
So he
and,
is
and
actually correct here.
yes, exactly. And what is very impressive to me is, so in the computer vision world, there is like there's this thing called the visual place recognition, which is a very active, still a very is considered not soft yet, right? And what is intriguing to me is like with this kind of like, oh, by the way, I should say also like this is basically running on one of those like big foundational model. The so-called zero shot ability of just recognizing where it is in the world from a single image is so good, man. I was shocked. In fact, I was asking my teammate, "Hey, are you sure we're not giving Sam some GPS coordinate?"
Hmm.
But no, I mean honestly, the AI is the only thing Sam see is yeah. So I think that what is again like coming back to this meme coin thing and what I think and I actually have a tweet about it. I don't know whether Niresh you can find a tweet where I talk about like why every serious project should maybe consider having a system meme coin. So
Yep, let me bring it up.
I find that really refreshing because as a builder, because it frees us up to try things that we wouldn't have tried because there's just no reason to no good reason to do these things. Uh, but now that we have a meme coin, like that meme coin, the price of the meme coin is to me almost like a real time um, feedback loop to for the public to tell us, hey, how cool is this thing that we just shipped, right? And I think as a maker, it's a very exciting thing to be like. You have no limit. You just do whatever you want to try. So I would say for Sam, right? We obviously we have no pretense of utility, right? So this is purely a meme coin. It was Sam is just not going to do anything that has so-called real utility, other than this is the place where we as a team, FrodoBots, will all the crazy experiment we'll do it with Sam, right? So this is where we're testing out, and so we have a ton of ideas of like what we can do with Sam. And I think maybe during the next robocall we could share more of those ideas. And also maybe just get feedback. Maybe run some polls on Twitter or something. Get people to vote on like interesting ideas that we should try and send. But I just think that the design surface is so big, right, for something like this. And so I'm super excited, like to keep like making Sam more entertaining. I think maybe that's the objective, right? Just make it more entertaining. And I think it's a great objective to have because to get Sam to be entertaining, actually under the hood, that means that we really need to really stretch the limit of all these like AI capabilities. Um, yeah. So yeah. So as you can see here, yeah, I do think every soccer series project maybe should consider having their sister meme coin. I mean, there is this risk though, however, that maybe I mean it. I did think whether it's going to be a distraction and whatnot. So I think we do need to have the discipline because, like, really, our north star is not this meme coin. Our north star is to solve embodied AI. But at the same time, I think that you know there are things that we should just really just experiment and just like it's like a toy project that we have on the side because you also never quite know. Maybe there's something that we start to have some traction there that we wouldn't have considered before because we never even shipped it. But now that we shipped it, we gotten the feedback from the market, and we might actually very much make it into much more of a utility thing, and then bring it back to the main project. So and yeah, in that sense, I think for me and the team, we are yeah, I think very excited. Like I mean, even for me, like I will like even when I'm working now, like I'll just have Sam live streaming on the side, just see what kind of shenanigans he's doing. I
Hmm.
mean, I would love to build it into one day almost like a travel KOL, right? That is like that have interesting running commentary, that is pretty vulgar, but also kind of witty, kind of like Anthony Bourdain a little bit, right? Uh, with a genuine desire to really explore the world. I mean, the physical world is so big, right? And I think to just watch how a robot AI kind of experience the world, I think that would be something quite cool to build. And I think just by building that, we're going to discover a lot of interesting things that we wouldn't have otherwise discovered. That again, like I said, we can bring it back to the so-called the real serious side of the project.
Cool. So I guess are there things you could share about you know upcoming maybe features of Sam that you're
Yeah,
considering releasing in the near future?
yeah. So I guess we can talk about the meme coin a bit. I know you prepared a bunch of questions. A lot of them are just about the meme coin, right?
Yeah.
So one thing I think I can basically share, and we kind of hinted at it already, is like so right now the team we have basically 15%, right, of the whole supply. And the idea is that this 15% to me is to be given to Sam, right? The AI, right? So imagine is now an AI that obviously we are improving it, right? Week in, week out. But it also have a budget. So the way I think of it is if Sam is a travel KOL, he now have a traveling budget, right? So but the way this Sam is going to travel, he needs a physical robot somewhere in the world to travel. So you can imagine what is the natural next step, right? Which is that Sam eventually would start to utilize this budget, this 15% of this Sam meme coin, to actually start rewarding like and also basically starting paying people, right? Who will who basically operate or own this kind of physical robot, and I imagine Sam is just going to pay people robot time, right? So that he can start to explore more places. And I think that's where the fun really gets started. Because right now, the number of robots that we have is still limited to robots that we run, right? Again, because we don't have the token thing, so it's still a limited number. But I think once Sam starts paying people like in his own token, um, it's this narrative about like AI basically having this meme coin, which is basically his own wallet, and it's starting to pay human being to do stuff. Is exactly that, right? And I think it's the natural next step. Um, so this one I think we'll definitely do hopefully soon. Uh, but I think just in general that just so much that we can do. I mean, I mentioned just now like Sam. I mean, oh sorry, all this robot has a speaker and microphone, right? You can imagine it would be damn funny to have Sam started talking, literally, maybe talking on just so the audience were dialing in, right? But then eventually also literally switching on his physical microphone in the physical robot and maybe chat with people that is physically next to the physical robot and then have a conversation and yeah. So I think all this like it's things that we will do because I mean but again like these things we will never even try because in the so-called serious side of the thing it's like there's not much reason for us to do this kind of experiment. But with Sam we have like we're writing on a blank piece of paper, no
Mhm.
limit, and we now have a budget to give Sam to do this stuff. So yeah, I mean I would say like there's a long list of things. I think maybe in
Yeah.
the second or the third robocall, uh um yeah we should share more and also maybe get more feedback and ideas from the community. um but yeah, we already have a long list of features that we want to push out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. So Sam's an AI agent who is going to travel the world by teleporting into robots and
Mhm.
potentially paying people for letting him do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is super exciting. Okay, so I guess I'm gonna get into some of the questions we've been getting.
Okay. Mm.
So first one, I guess, is really about rug pulls, right?
Mhm.
Like I think there were a lot of questions about what is the purpose of the meme coin? How would you address some of these?
Yeah, so I mean, looking back, I think if we were to do another meme coin, we would do it better. But again, like this, what's done is done. I think we done a bad job like communicating publicly. So I think once the word get out that we are doing something with virtual. I think like that's when like actually the token started to spike, right? But actually, so we basically make two announcements. The first announcement was a slightly more cryptic one, saying that we are gonna do something with virtual. And for those who people who already know us, obviously we do robotics, and then of course virtual do AI agents. So naturally, people already guess this is going to be embodied AI or robotic AI agents. And then so the meme coin started going up. And but honestly, at the time we were still trying to fix some stuff. um, we weren't actually fully ready to really show Sam, right? Like the live stream, for example, wasn't working properly still, right? Uh and then like we realized we like to live stream on Twitter, like 24/7 is not so straightforward and things like that, right? Technical issues. So we kind of neglected like telling people properly, oh, okay, what's this about? And so and this is also why, right, like I think it gave us the momentum to do this kind of robocall more regularly. So I think to just to answer quickly the first question, like this drive to earn, there's no so Sam is just a meme coin, zero utility. Okay, just meme coin. We will never have utility with this. Uh, the only thing we'll do maybe is just entertainment value. That's it, right? And because we want to make sure there's clear delineation, anything that has real utility, or the so-called serious stuff, we already have a different plan, a different tokenomics, if you will, that we're going to announce in a couple of weeks time. Um, so Sam will continue to be the place where we do all this like crazy, experiment that will really push the envelope for the technical stuff. Um, yeah. Uh, yeah. So
Cool.
I think hopefully with more of this regular thing, uh, we'll build a reputation and also because I would say we don't have any reputation. So I think it's easy for people to think of us as a scam, especially for people who are finding out uh, they don't know that we've been working on this like for 2+ years.
Hmm.
I would say we have survived one cycle, very bad cycle,
Yeah.
and obviously we're still around, right? So we obviously really have high conviction of what we're building. So, uh, but yeah, don't take my word for it. Just see what we do. Uh, you know, um, yeah.
Cool.
Mm.
Okay. So next question. Um, I
Yeah.
guess
So
it's
this
kind of
one,
related. Yeah.
yeah. So this one, okay. So this is quite technical. So what happened is that so virtual basically is based on base. But obviously, a lot of the meme coins, activity on Solana, right? So I think the virtual guys they also know as well. Uh, but again, this whole thing happened in 6 days. Okay, so I'll basically like discussion with the virtual guys that they mostly help us take care of the kind of the token launch, and then we really have to build the actual AI, right? The SAM. So but obviously they've done it many times now, so I think they completely know what they're doing. And but because the whole thing was actually on base, so but at the same time we also want people who are more familiar with Solana and SVM to be able to do something. So they actually did a wormhole bridge, right? So some portion of the base token basically got breached, right, to so. And so it maybe like when you go to the, let's say, deck screener, right? So we have one for base and then one on the pool with the Solana token. So and because the numbers that is breached via wormhole is not the full number of, right, so the market cap looks weird already, right? So I would say the way to look at it is like just look at the price on both, right? Obviously there may be a small arbitrage sometimes, right, between the two. um, but base is still, because of the way virtual does it, it's on base. But the so, for people who want to, you know just use Solana to buy it, there's a pool there for people to do it. So it's not like gatekeeping the tokenomics on. So I don't know whether maybe that's what this guy is asking for, but yeah, so that's the reason basically.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay. So moving on. Um,
Yeah, I think
I
same
guess
thing.
that is essentially the same
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. So drive to earn.
You
Yeah,
have
so
already answered this.
yeah, zero utility, no utility. Okay, never. so all the utility stuff. Well, I don't know. I mean, yeah, I don't know, like whether you count. So the only utility, maybe if you can count one, is it will be Sam using his own token to incentivize people to do stuff for Sam, right?
Yeah.
So if there's a utility, it's to the AI agent, not to humans, right?
Not
So
to, yeah.
yeah, so don't think of it as having utility. I don't think it will be like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So I guess this was in reference to the robocall that we're having right now.
Oh, I see. Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah, I guess we
Yeah.
answered it at the beginning, so
Yeah.
the whole thing about robocall is for some discipline onto ourselves to kind of update and share publicly what we're building. I think this call, the first call, is lasting very long. I don't think the
Mhm.
next call is gonna be that long. Um um yeah,
And
but
just
it's
on
it's
that
really
point,
just yeah.
if anyone's actually listening and you have questions, feel free to ask us on Twitter or Discord or wherever, and someone will let us know.
Mm.
Okay, so yeah, this would be one of the last few questions, I believe.
Hmm.
Why are we having Sam before the actual token launch for the bot? You have also already answered this,
Yeah, I mean
but maybe a summary.
I mean we did it in quick succession actually. I mean if I'm not wrong, I think we announced um the partnership with Virtual, and then I think 1 day plus later we already tell people like so I think the partnership with Sam, sorry, with Virtual. I mean we announced the partnership and then but we also told people that was going to be a token. And then somehow people find out what's the token, even though I don't think we actually mentioned the token, and then and the token started really going up, right? And then I think shortly after that, like 2 days later, that's when we officially announced, okay, this is where Sam is. I mean the Twitter account, right?
Mhm.
Um, so if you're talking about those 2 days thing, I guess like you can literally just narrow it down to because we are literally still fixing some technical issues. Um, and what I can state categorically is the team basically have 15% of the supply. I have zero idea who control the rest. Uh, but like I said, this 15% is going to be used by Sam, the AI agent, right? So that's how we think about this.
Yeah.
We are not looking to. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't say never, but I mean we're definitely not thinking about monetizing this because don't forget like we do have a separate tokenomics that is with the so-called the serious part, the real part of the project.
Yeah.
And
I,
so
I, I do
so
think that is what this question was about, if I understood it right. It is why Sam is out
oh, I see.
before the real
The token
token.
launch, yeah. So yeah, I guess yeah, maybe yeah. So
Is it
if
just
this
a
is what,
coincidence of,
yeah,
how the timing worked out?
yeah, I think also for Sam, I mean, I think like his history is path dependent, right? Like I said, when I first met the guys from Virtual, I already told them let's do an embodied AI agent together somehow. But that's like half a year ago, right? AI agent haven't gone viral yet. Um, so and I don't think the first AI agent that will go viral will be an embodied one, will be a robotic one. I think it was just going to be a chatbot, right? So,
Hmm.
uh, but the moment it happened, I think then we immediately need to launch something very quick. I feel so we just rush this out, right? And also because it's I think we are able to do it very quick. In a way, it only took actually the first prototype. It took us only 2 days, and so in a way, it took us 2 days to launch it. But also, actually, it took us 2 years to launch this
Hmm.
because to get everything ready, right? To have all the robots in all the different cities across all the different time zone, right? I mean, that clearly is well tested, right? That is weatherproof. Um, you know, there has a
And the
decent
SDK as
SDK,
well.
right? All the networking, all the 4G, set up properly. The whole operational infrastructure, everything. So, live stream that is already working. So in a way, yeah, is like 2 days to launch because it has taken us 2 years to build it.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I mean, yeah. So yeah, what's next? Yeah, so okay, okay,
Yeah.
finally, we come to the end. Yeah, so what's next? The exciting things, like I said, is we have a very big announcement that we're gonna announce in about 2 weeks time. Uh, and I'm sure in the next robocall, we should maybe delay the second robocall a little bit. I'll see. Maybe it will be shortly after the actual release where we actually talk about that because I think probably the second one should just talk about that because that was such a big thing. Um, yeah, I was so stay tuned for that. With Sam, what we want to show people, especially people who think that we'll be rug pulling. I mean, obviously, we put our faces out there, like, we dox ourselves because like we want to gain trust. And so, yeah, um, don't don't just take our word, like observe what we're gonna do with Sam. Look at the cadence that we're gonna push out new features and judge it for yourself, right? I am extremely optimistic that Sam is gonna do well. I mean, of course, the market is gonna do what the market is gonna do, right? But my view is that Sam has the opportunity to be probably one of the most entertaining AI agent out there. Uh, yeah. So and yeah, that's what we'll work towards. Yeah. So that's what Sam.
Cool.
Um. Oh, and also I guess on uh maybe another thing. Yeah, we are gonna really have more like bigger announcement as well to on the gaming side. So I'm sure Niresh at some point soon will have some big announcement on what kind of game we want to push out. Um, and then also lastly, I think like at the right time, we are working on some direct research collaboration with some top world class researchers. So at the right time, we'll once they publish those paper, we'll probably have them up, on join us on a call and share the research, right? Um, so yeah, so I think plenty of things that we're working on. Yeah, super exciting, and also I think the world is ready finally for like robotics. Especially the last 1 year, and really kudos to Tesla and Elon Musk, right? Really, Elon has proven to people that like robotics is real. Certainly with the humanoids, it's coming. And so yeah, hopefully we, even though we're a small project, but I think we really want to make a meaningful difference in some ways. And I think crypto is going to have a big part to play on that front. So
Awesome. Okay,
okay,
so I think that's it for us. Thank you for all those detailed answers, Michael. And
yeah,
thank you everyone for listening in to us. Hopefully we'll see you again, on our Twitter in
yeah,
hopefully 2 weeks. Yeah.
okay, cool. Let's do that.
Okay.
I actually quite like it. Yeah, it's yeah,
Awesome.
we should keep this up. It's a discipline for ourselves. All right, cool. Sounds good.
Thanks
Well,
everyone.
all right. Thanks everyone for whoever is tuning in or watching this. Thank you.
Bye
Okay.
bye.
Bye bye.